Okay, hi Michael. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good.
Appreciate you coming on. I see you came through postcard books. That's what was his name? Dr.
It's
Gaines?
a British publisher called Envelope Books, and
Oh,
I think
envelope
one of their
books.
divisions is called Postcard.
Okay, I was trying to remember his name. He was actually on the show.
Yeah,
Well,
I know. Stephen Gaines.
Games, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did he refer you to us?
Yes, he did.
Oh, good.
Hmm.
Well, I have to thank him for that. Anyways, you're here to promote a book. I wanted to talk about your life a little bit before we get to your book because it looks like you've had a pretty interesting life. One thing that caught my eye right away on your bio was you made two transatlantic trips, one of them aboard the ocean liner USS or the SS United States.
Yes, that was when I was 11 years old. At that time, it was the fastest transatlantic ship in the world.
Was that the one that they featured on I Love Lucy that she missed and they had to helicopter her? Do you remember that
I
episode?
remember the episode. I don't remember if that was the ship.
It seems to
It
me
could have been.
it was that ship, but I could
Could
be
have been.
wrong. But anyways, what was the other one?
The other one was called the SS Homeric. That was when I was 7 years old.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that. I thought maybe it had been the Queen Mary.
That's no, that the Homeric wasn't particularly famous.
So, what did you do for a living? It looked like, were you a teacher?
Yeah, I was a teacher for about 25 years. And once my children were more or less grown up, I decided I'd had enough of teaching and I wanted to study philosophy, something I'd been wanting to do for many years. So after I retired from teaching, we came out to California and I went back to graduate school and I got a PhD in philosophy in Claremont, thinking that with my PhD in hand, I'd be able to find some kind of more interesting teaching job. But because of primarily because of my age, I just wasn't able to make that happen. So not through choice, more from necessity, I've been retired ever since.
Well, is philosophy something that a lot of people are taking as a subject? Because it seems to me that would be, I don't know, maybe something that people took in the past, but not so
No,
much
they are.
today.
They
Yeah.
are. There's still many active philosophy departments. But I wasn't even able to get rehired teaching high school, which I've been doing for those 25 years. And I think it was really the fact that by the time I got the PhD, I was already 60 years old, and they just didn't want somebody that old.
Well, maybe they thought you had one eyeball on retirement already. Sometimes
Yeah,
they
or
do that.
I think often they prefer younger people because they're easier to push around.
Well, there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
How many books have you published?
Well, I self-published a children's book, and then a couple of years after that, I self-published a futuristic novel, which I actually advertised at my own expense in a couple of different publications. But that really didn't work out as well as I had hoped. So I'm very happy that I've been picked up this time by a real publisher, and I'm hoping that between his efforts and mine, it will fall into the right hands. The hard part is getting it reviewed by someone with a big enough following.
Well, I think you can pay to go on Kirkus, right?
Yeah, you can. I've been resistant to doing that. For one thing, I don't want to spend the money, and for another thing, I don't know if Kirkus reviews really generate
Does anything
much
for you?
interest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't really know either. I mean, I see a lot of guests who come through this show who have Kirkus reviews, and
Yeah.
I tend to skim right over it. So I don't know if that's any
Well,
indication or
also
not.
apparently the way it works is when Kirkus sends monthly catalog out to libraries. They divide it up into reviews that they've done out of their own free will and reviews that have been paid for, so
Oh,
that
I see.
the librarian or the bookshop owner or whomever it might be immediately knows which reviews were simply purchased. So I would think that's sort of a disincentive. But
Well,
who
so
knows?
if you submit your book for them to review, then they
Yeah.
give you the option of you can pay for this or we'll do it out of our own pocket.
No, I think they just
They
they just
randomly
decide
pick.
which books they feel like reviewing for free.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't really know exactly how it works, but the fact that you are paying for the review, I think somehow that weakens the impact, shall we say.
I don't know that they would feel obligated to give you a good review just because you paid.
No, and in fact, they give you the option of deleting the review.
Yeah. So, how much do they charge? Do you know?
I think it's about $500.
Oh, so it's not real cheap.
No.
Yeah. Well, we've got about 8 minutes. Okay, let's get to the book that you're here to talk about, Mrs. Woodbine's Prejudices. That's an interesting title. Is this a fiction?
It's a combination. It's partly autobiographical and partly completely imaginary. So it's not strictly a memoir. It's a work of imagination based on my actual childhood.
So, are you the main character?
I'm one of them. The Marcus, the 10-year-old boy in the story, is loosely based on myself, but as I said, there are many things that happened to him that did not actually happen to me.
Okay, so it says it's set in the year 1960. So,
Hmm.
how old is Marcus in 1960?
10.
Okay, and then it timelines through the 60s,
No,
or does it stay
it
there?
extends from the summer of 1960 to uh, around Christmas time of that year.
Oh, so just 1 year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And all of this happens to him in 1 year?
Yes, and he has two brothers, which who are loosely based on my actual brothers. And he has two parents, and he has a grandfather who's a very important character because the novel really gets going with a transatlantic voyage, which the family take to visit the grandfather in Vienna, Austria. The grandfather, like my actual grandfather, had been forced to leave Austria during the Nazi period, having had all of his property and possessions taken away. And then after the war, he came back and almost miraculously was able to recover his business, but very little else. So in the book, the boys and their parents and Mrs. Woodbine, who's sort of a paid companion, they get on this ship and they travel to Europe and they reunite with the grandfather with all kinds of unexpected twists and turns. This is supposed to be a very enjoyable family reunion, but all sorts of things happen which make it in some ways more tragic, in some ways funnier. It's a blend of well, there are a lot of memories of persecution, of war, of exile, but at the same time, I've put in some incidents which I hope are funny. So it's a blend.
Is this told in first person?
No,
No. Okay. Can you give us one anecdote that
sure.
Marcus gets up to? Just a quick one. Doesn't have to be too involved.
Well, the grandfather has a chauffeur. This is a character that's loosely based on a real person. And the chauffeur is kind of a ticking time bomb. Everything he gets involved in ends in some sort of comical or tragic disaster. So at one point, the three brothers are hanging out with the chauffeur, and he tells them, "Oh, look at all of those beautiful flower pots lined up on that stone wall. Let's take stones and see if we can break as many of them as we can." Now, I don't know what those pots were doing on that wall, but this is something that actually did happen to me. So they're breaking the pots, and then the next thing that happens is the chauffeur brings out his bottle of beer and starts getting the boys a little tipsy. And then the grandfather's much younger wife finds out what's going on. She's horrified, and she slaps the chauffeur right across the face. She's so angry. And of course, being three American boys, we can't quite understand how could this be happening? How could someone treat an employee in such a brutal fashion? So the poor chauffeur, after this, develops a kind of grudge against the family, and he gets into all sorts of trouble trying to get even. For example, he finds out that the grandfather's wife has a secret that she's been harboring, something that happened to her during the war. So he threatens to blackmail the grandfather because he knows certain things, shameful things that happened in the course of the war, specifically when the Russian army entered Vienna and started raping hundreds of thousands of women. So I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but this is one of the ways in which the chauffeur tries to get even with the family.
Well, what genre would you put this book in?
I think it fits the genre of coming of age story, but it's also set against these very painful memories of persecution and war. One of the unusual things about the story is that although the boy's father came from a non-religious Jewish background, he decided to convert to Catholicism. And then when he gets married, his wife also converts to Catholicism, just so there won't be a mixed marriage, as it used to be called in those days. So in my real life, I did grow up with this very unusual blend of Jewish, Catholic, and on my mother's side, Protestant influences. And I've tried to bring that into the novel as much as I can, because I think that's something that was unique in my upbringing.
Well, it sounds like it. Has the book been released?
Yeah, it was released at the end of September.
What kind of reviews are you getting, aside from the Kirkus one?
Well, I'm still waiting for the New York Times, but so far hasn't happened. Well, I've sent it to some people. I sent it to a friend of mine in England who's just one of the most brilliant philosophers that I know of. And he thought it was, to use his words, first rate. He thought it was really good. So in a sense, that means more to me than a review by someone I don't know and whose judgment may or may not be valid.
Well, Michael, I think on that we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. Last question, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, it's Real Book, that's one word, REALBOOK, .org.
Realbook.org, REAL. Okay. Well, again, thanks for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck with this book. Hope it does well.
Okay, thank you.